Welcome to the art project. No fancy intros here, just jumping right into it. This is part two of a video where I did these letters in 2-point perspective. If you would like to know how to do letters in 2-point perspective, check out that video. It's more of an idea, less tutorial, I guess, maybe, kind of fast. Assuming you can gather the information from hitting pause and fast forward and rewind and all of that. But anyway, on this one, I am decorating it, and there was a lot of decorating to do, which begs the question, how many wonderful and amazing art projects do not get done simply because we procrastinate? Simply because we think, oh my gosh, that is just too much. I can't do all of that. How many projects just don't even get started because the artist thinks to themselves, or the engineer, or the architect, or the inventor thinks to themselves, that's just too much. Well, honest to goodness, this is not really that much. If you look at like the Sistine Chapel, what an amazing feat of artistry, and how big and giant it is, and how many figures and how many uh, decorations and intricate designs are in there. And this is a sheet of 9 by 24-inch paper. And yet, I know when I started it, I thought, oh, this is going to be hard. This is going to be too much. So, really, all I did here was I banged my head against the wall a few times until a good idea came. I'm just kidding. I didn't bang my head against any walls. Don't do that. But I didn't know what I was going to put on here. And then I happened to look in the mirror and see that I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. And it inspired me. What if I did a Hawaiian shirt pattern on these letters? So I went to the internet, I looked up Hawaiian shirt patterns, I found one that interested me, and then I just started freehanding the designs. This is not exactly like the image that I saw, but it was similar. And so I just took a lot of ideas from it and then just did it by hand. Excuse me. Then the laborious process of coloring it in. Now, you see how uh, deep it is because of the 2-point perspective. The letters look like they go way, way, way back. But when I put this pattern on here, I didn't attempt to make it look like it was folding around the edges or anything like that. I simply uh, drew it on there flat. Um, kind of took the easy way out when I did that. Just drew it on there uh, plain and regular because I knew that the shading was going to give it a little bit more three-dimensional quality to it. So as I'm coloring it in, you're going to see me go from left to right here, just coloring the whole thing in solid red, no fancy coloring or anything like that, just this one red marker from the left all the way to the right. After doing all of that, I did the background, but I'll wait until we get to the background and surprise you with that. The Hawaiian shirt, of course, reminded me of Hawaii. So it took me a little while to figure out how I was going to decorate these letters. Um, some of the other examples that I saw had swirls and Zen doodles on them, or some sort of like American flag pattern. And I just wanted to do something a little bit different. And you know what? In order to do something special, I heard this on a video recently. In order to do something special, usually it's going to be a little bit more difficult because nobody else has ever done it before. And in order to do something that is more difficult, you have to work a little bit harder. So I am just working as hard as I can here. Notice that the shirt that I am wearing is also a red background with white Hawaiian patterns on it. Thought that was interesting. Kind of a coincidence, actually. Anyway, maybe it was my subconscious telling me that this was the best way to go, the best colors to choose. Who knows? So anyway, if you're going to do something that is different and unique and special, it is going to require a little bit more work and a little bit more effort, and it's going to probably be a little bit more difficult. So just persevere, and that way you have the bragging rights. I did it. I finished it. I completed it. You only fail. Again, I got this from a video I watched recently. You only fail if you make the conscious decision to quit. I give up. Then you failed. But if you keep on going, then any supposed failure is just part of the process. You haven't finished it yet. So keep on trucking. Let me know in the comments down below if there is any um, recent failures that you wished you hadn't quit on, or ideas or projects you're working on and you have not succeeded yet, but you will. And what do you think of this Hawaiian pattern? How'd I do? This is my first time ever doing a Hawaiian shirt pattern, and I'm kind of excited about it. I might have to do some more of these, maybe. See, my shirt kind of matches my drawing. All right, so I have sped this video up 2,000 times its regular speed, and you can see how long it's taken me. By the way, if you don't have time for all this, by all means, hit the little, I think it's a three dot array in the corner of the video and speed it up 2 times its normal speed if you want to. Watch it even supersonic speed and listen to me sound funny. All right, so once I get done with this, I am going to do the background, and then after I do the background, I'm going to come back and do all of the shading. The shading is going to be done with a Sharpie pen. I'm going to crosshatch or hatch all of the shading in between all of the letters, and that will make it stand out for me. So you can see this is pretty flat. Now, the background that I'm doing is an image that I found on the internet of Hawaii, and I am just sort of roughly watercoloring it in. If you are one of my students and you're doing this project, you probably have your choice of medium. You can do it in watercolor, you can do it marker, Sharpie, color pencil, whatever you want to do. Oh, also kind of worth mentioning here that I fully intended on putting a half-inch border all the way around this piece. And I got to this part and I totally forgot. And so no going back. Why would I put a half-inch border on it? Well, that way I don't have to paint off the edges of the paper and get it on my nice little mat or on the table or make a mess. And also it gives me a place to mat it if I decided I wanted to have it matted. A half-inch border would um, give it place to the mat, room to cover up the paper without covering up the drawing. And it would also be less space for me to have to actually color in. Less space to actually have to watercolor. Not a whole lot, but it would save a little bit of time. And it would make it look real professional even if I didn't mat it. So again, this is just a watercolor background of a little scene in Hawaii that I found on the internet. Nice colorful clouds, sunset, water, all that. Whenever I'm using watercolor, if you don't know this already, whenever I'm using watercolor, I like to keep it nice and watery, nice and transparent, and build up layers. I can always get it darker if I need to, but it's real hard to erase watercolor, especially on this particular drawing paper that I'm using. So be careful about that. These are the mountains. The mountains had a really wild, warm appearance to them from the sun that was shining on them, but they were also kind of silhouetted. So there, it's coming out there now, looking good. Water is terribly difficult. I was going to do the background or the shadows on each of the letters with watercolor. I thought all of a sudden that might help, but the marker that I used, the red marker that I used, is washable, and so it started to lift the paint, and instead of making it darker, kind of made it lighter. So what I'm doing right here is I've got my ruler on the vanishing point on the left, and I'm making sure that all of my lines, which are the shading, are going towards the vanishing point on the left. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of the shading on the letters that are on the left. Though all the shading will go to the vanishing point on the right. After I get a lot of these lines in there, I will then come back and freehand the rest of the shading. These are just some guidelines to help me keep all of my hatch marks going in the same direction. And it was a fairly laborious process. But again, the harder you have to work, probably the better results. You know, you probably heard work smarter, not harder. That's true. But there's still going to be hard work involved, and just can't avoid that. So now I'm going back in between all of those hatch marks that I made, and I am freehanding more of them to make it darker. You can see a little bit of dimension on the letters on the right, but just not enough. And I think I skipped a lot because now suddenly there's a lot more depth. But now I'm doing the letters on the right the same way. Just move my ruler down a little bit, make some hatch marks. Move my ruler down a little bit more, make some hatch marks. Move my ruler down a little bit more, make some hatch marks. I accidentally messed up on the top of the T. I put some lines there that weren't really supposed to be there, but you can't really see them from here. You can't see them from a distance when you're looking at the picture, and it doesn't really bother me that much. So here I am just filling in extra hatch marks in between all of the ones that I did with the ruler. And by doing this, it makes it a lot darker. So you kind of get the idea. I hope you like it. It was a lot of fun to do. I may have to do some more of these. If you are getting something out of this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you have not already, please subscribe. There's a mess up on the A right there too that I didn't do anything about. I just dove right in, kept going. Even if you mess up on some of these things, it's not life-threatening. It's not the end of the world. Just keep going. So I wanted this to be a little bit darker, so I came back in here and I kept on adding more hatch marks and more hatch marks. So hatch marks for infinity. And this is really one of my favorite things. I think I could probably make hatch marks, cross hatching. I could make, I could do shading with a pen forever. It's one of my favorite things. I don't know why. I just really enjoy doing it. I like it more than the coloring it in. I like it more than the watercolor. More hatch marks. Notice how the more I put on there, the darker it gets, right? And there's still the Hawaiian shirt pattern showing through the shading. To me, it was almost unbelievable how full I actually did the sides, and it still showed up through those hatch marks. Oh, there you have it. the finished product. I think it turned out pretty good. I know it's a little bit difficult to read, but you can tell that there are letters there, and if you dig into it and kind of try to read it, you can read it, and that's it. Now, I wish you good luck on your 2 point perspective project. Go make some art.